Hello everyone, I'm Himanshu Vasnani from Department of Mechanical Engineering. I'm discussing on the subject non-destructive evaluation and testing with Specport ME419, unit number 4, lecture number 24 in the series, and today's topic are magnetic field orientation and fraud detectability. So, the learning objective for today is to provide the students with the basic understanding of magnetic field orientation and the types of magnetizing current, and to know about the concept of flaw detectability. And the outcome of today's lecture will students will have an understanding of magnetic field orientation and types of magnetizing current, and the students will understand the concept of flaw detectability. So, let's discuss about topic permeability because it's a very important topic. See, permeability is a material property that describes the ease with which a magnetic flux is established in a component. Okay, we have been discussing about various terms like retentivity, coercivity, saturation in our last lecture. Okay, so we have been discussing about magnetic force and the flux density, that is the loop that has been formed, and various terms like saturation, coercivity, retentivity were discussed during that lecture. So coming after that, we discussed about permeability. So it is described as a material property that that property with ease with which the magnetic flux is established in a component. Okay, so it can be described as the ratio of the flux density, that is capital B, created within a material to the magnetizing field, that is capital H, and it is represented by the following equation, that is mu is equals to B upon H. Okay, so you can see in the diagram on the right hand side also, the horizontal axis is given by the magnetizing force, that is H, and the vertical axis is shown by the capital B, that is the flux density. And you can see the saturation point. Okay, and the slope of the line is that the tangent of the BS curve at this point is used to determine the material's maximum permeability. And permeability is the ease with which the magnetic flux is established in a component. Okay, so you can see the tangent, okay, to this curve, BH curve. Okay, so you can define the permeability as the ratio of the flux density B created within a material to the magnetizing field, that is H. So mu is equals to B upon H. So this equation describes the slope of the curve at any point. Okay, this equation describes the slope of the curve at any point. You can see in the diagram on the right hand side. On the hysteresis loop, okay, the loop that we discussed yesterday. So the permeability value given in the literature for materials is usually the maximum permeability or the maximum relative permeability. Okay, and the maximum permeability is the point at which the slope of the BH curve for the unmagnetized material is the greatest. Okay, the maximum permeability is the point where the slope of the BH curve for the unmagnetized material is the greatest. And this point is often taken as the point where a straight line from the origin is tangent to the BH curve. See the diagram on the right hand side. Okay, this point is often taken as a point where the straight line from the origin is tangent. Okay, tangent to the BH curve. So the shape of the hysteresis loop tells us a great deal about the material being magnetized. Okay, so the hysteresis curve of the two different materials are shown in this graph. You can see in the graph there are two loops shown, one with the red, you can say red color, and one with the blue color. Okay, and you can say the one loop is wider, okay, and one hysteresis loop is narrower. So say these represent two different materials, है ना? Okay, in the graph, in the BH graph. So relative to the other materials, a material with a wider hysteresis loop. Okay, now now they're telling about the wider hysteresis loop. They say that if a material has a wider hysteresis loop, that means that it has lower permeability, it has higher retentivity, it has higher coercivity, it has higher reluctance, it has higher residual. See, if the retentivity is higher, that means that it will have higher residual magnetism. Okay, so they both are relative to each other. Okay, Now related to the other material, like a material, it is having a narrower hysteresis loop. That means that it will have a higher permeability. It is having lower retentivity. It is having lower coercivity. It is having lower reluctance. It is having lower residual magnetism. So you can compare if you know only one property, any one of the scope of the hysteresis loop, then you can easily compare that it is having a wider hysteresis loop. So what properties it will differ and how it will differ, and if a material is having lower hysteresis loop, then how it will differ from the other loop. Okay, so this way you can compare two materials with the help of hysteresis loop also. Okay, now in magnetic particle testing, the level of residual magnetism is important. Okay, so residual magnetic fields are affected by the permeability, which can relate to the carbon content and alloying of the material. So you can say that a component with high carbon content will have low permeability and will retain more magnetic flux than a material with low carbon content. So if a person is if a material is having a high carbon content, it will have low permeability. Okay, and will retain more magnetic flux than a material with low carbon content. So in this way, you can relate permeability with also carbon content also. Okay, high carbon content, then low permeability is there also, and obviously the vice versa is also there. So now the magnetic field orientation and forward activity. Now the purpose behind using non-destructive evaluation techniques like visual inspection, you can say liquid penetrant testing, radiographic inspection, ultrasonic testing, eddy current testing. The whole purpose of this ND testing is flaw detection, flaw detectability. And here in magnetic particle testing also, we are understanding on the flaw detectability. The purpose is you have to identify the flaw in ferromagnetic materials, okay, with the help of iron particles, okay, in magnetic particle testing. So now we are studying on the topic magnetic field inspection or magnetic field orientation and flaw detectability. Okay, so you can see in the diagram, there are two diagrams showing longitudinal magnetic field and circular. You can see the circular magnetic field. Okay, so let's discuss on this topic. To properly inspect, to properly inspect a component for cracks or other defects, it is important to understand that the orientation of the crack related to the magnetic lines of flow. Okay, you should understand that the orientation of the crack relative to the magnetic lines of force. It determines if the crack can or cannot be detected. Okay, to properly inspect a component for cracks or other defects, we should understand that it is important to understand that the orientation of the crack relative to the magnetic lines of force determines if the crack can or cannot be detected. Okay, so there are two types of magnetic fields that can be established within a component. Okay, so our purpose behind all such inspection is to properly inspect a component. And for what we are inspecting? We are inspecting a component for cracks and other defects. And we should understand that the two general types of magnetic fields that can be established within a component, and they are like the first is the longitudinal magnetic field, and the second is circular magnetic field. We have just showed you in the starting. The you can see the diagrams. The first one is the longitudinal magnetic field. The second one is the circular magnetic field. A longitudinal magnetic field has the magnetic fields and magnetic lines of force that run parallel to the long axis of the path. Okay, the first one has the magnetic fields. The longitudinal magnetic field has magnetic lines of force that run parallel to the long axis of the path. So, longitudinal magnetization of a component can be accomplished using a longitudinal field set up by a coil or a solenoid. So, it can be accomplished using permanent magnets or electromagnets. Okay, so here you can establish a longitudinal field with the help of coil or solenoid in case of longitudinal magnetic field. Because in this, the magnetic lines of force run parallel to the long axis of the path. And if you talk about the second type, okay, the circular magnetic field. So circular magnetic field, this has magnetic lines of force that run circumferentially around the perimeter of a path. You can see in the diagram how these magnetic lines of force, these are running circumferentially around the perimeter of the path. A circular magnetic field is induced in an article by either passing current through the component, by either passing current through the component or by passing current through a conductor surrounded by the component. Okay, now they are saying that the magnetic current, the circular magnetic field, you can induce this thing in a material or article by either passing the current through the component. Either you pass the current through the component, you will have a circular magnetic field. And the second way to establish circular magnetic field is a passing current through a conductor surrounded by the component. Passing current through a conductor surrounded by the component. So in this way also you can get a circular magnetic field. Okay. So you can understand the circular magnetic field, they have the magnetic lines of force run circumferentially around the perimeter of the path. And longitudinal magnetic field has magnetic lines of force that run parallel to the long axis of the path. Okay, so these are like orientation, magnetic field orientations. Now let's move further. The type of magnetic field established is determined by the method used to magnetize the specimen. Okay, being able to magnetize the part in two directions is important because the best detection of defects occurs when the lines of magnetic force are established at right angles to the longest dimension of the defect. Okay, I repeat once again, then you will understand. Ah, then a type of magnetic field established is determined by the method used to magnetize the specimen. Now we are magnetizing the specimen. And being able to magnetize the part in two directions is important because the best detection of defect. Now you are working on finding the defect, that is defect detection. Now because the best detection of defects occurs when the lines of magnetic force are established at right angles to the longest dimension of the defect. Okay, you can see in the diagram also it is how it is shown the flux leakage. Okay, so how it is easily find out this thing. So you can see that this orientation creates the largest disruption of the magnetic field within the part and the greatest flux leakage at the surface of the part. So you will see the flux leakage at the surface of the part. Okay, you can see this in the diagram also. Okay, so if the magnetic field is parallel to the defect, the field will see little disruption and no flux leakage will be produced. And low flux leakage field will be produced. So if you think that at right angle there will be large disruptions of the magnetic field and you can see the difference in the flux leakage, and if the magnetic field is parallel to the defect then you will see little disruption and you will feel and you will see that no flux leakage field is there on the different surface. So let's go to the next. Now an orientation of 45 to 90 degrees between the magnetic field and the defect is necessary to form an indication. Now they are talking technically that if you give an angle of around 45 to 90 degree between the magnetic field and the defect, you can have a clear indication about the defect. Now, since defects may occur in various and unknown directions, okay, each part is normally magnetized in two directions at right angles to each other. So we are trying to magnetize in two directions. Okay, so we are magnetizing the part in two directions at right angles to them. So you can see in the diagram on the right hand side, the bottom diagram, you will see that there are irregular cracks that are showing. Okay, and you can see the current is passing from the center of the, you can say, the part. Okay, then you will see that the longitudinal crack is showing, and the magnetic field that you can see, the magnetic field is showing through the arrows in the on the circumference. Okay, then you can easily see the transverse crack is not showing, but the longitudinal crack is showing as it is at an angle of the magnetic field. Okay, the irregular cracks may show because they are also easily available. Okay, so in this way you can understand that if there's an orientation of some angles like between 45 and 90 degree between the magnetic field and the defect, between the magnetic field and the defect, obviously an indication will be there. Okay. So if the component is shown is considered, it is known that the passing current through the part from end to end, the bottom diagram from end to end, will establish a circular magnetic field that will be 90 degrees to the direction of the current. Obviously, the current is showing in the longitudinal way, and you can see the magnetic field as created and on the circumference of the in the circular magnetic field. Now, therefore, the defects that have a significant dimensions in the direction of the current, okay, that is the longitudinal defects, should be detectable. Okay, the defects that have a significant dimensions in the direction of the current, longitudinal defects should be detectable, while the transverse type defects will not be detectable with a circular magnetization. Okay, this is how the defect detectability is done. Okay, with the help of orientation. Now, magnetization of ferromagnetic materials. Now, this is also a very important topic because in magnetic particle testing, the name ferromagnetic materials is taken many times, and you should know how to magnetize the ferromagnetic materials. Even in the hysteresis loop, we have studied taking the example of a ferromagnetic material and how the actions of saturation, coercivity, tentivity, permeability, these all are studied. These terms all are studied with respect of hysteresis loop, taking in consideration of ferromagnetic material. So we are discussing about the magnetization of a ferromagnetic material. So there are a variety of methods that can be used. Okay, there are a variety of methods that can be used to establish a magnetic field in a component for evaluation using magnetic particle inspection. So it is common to classify the magnetizing methods as either direct or indirect. Okay, you need a method to establish a magnetic field in a component for evaluation using MPI. Okay, and magnetic particle inspection. The short form for magnetic particle inspection is MPI. So the various ways to establish a magnetic field in a component for evaluation using MPI are uh, magnetizing using direct induction, that is direct magnetization. Now with direct magnetization, the current is passed directly through the component. The flow of current causes a circular magnetic field to form in and around the conductor. Okay, the flow of current causes a circular magnetic field to form in and around the conductor. Now, when using this direct magnetization method, care must be taken to ensure that a good electrical contact is established and maintained between the test equipment and test component to avoid damage of the component. Why the damage will be there? Due to arcing or overheating at resistant pads. Okay, when you are going for a direct magnetization means you are passing the current directly through the component, and this will give you a circular magnetic field. So when using this kind of direct magnetization, okay, you should take care that you ensure a good electrical contact between the test component and test equipment. Why do you want to have good electrical contact? Because you to avoid the damage of the component. It may be due to arcing or due to overheating at high resistance fans. Okay. Now there are several ways that direct magnetization is commonly accomplished. So now we are discussing about the various ways of direct magnetization. So one way involving clamping the component between two electrical contacts in a special piece of equipment. You can see in the diagram how this electric current is given and then how the magnetic field is developed. Okay, you can see the electric current is flowing through the workpiece or the component. Okay, in a longitudinal way, and the circular magnetic field is created with the red arrows. Okay, so now what it has done, it has clamped the component between two electrical contacts in a special piece or component. So you in this what you do you current is passed through the component and a circular magnetic field is established in and around the component. So when the magnetizing current is stopped, when the magnetizing current is stopped, a residual magnetic field will remain within the component. It is a ferromagnetic material, so automatically you will see that a residual magnetic field is remaining within the component. So the strength of the induced magnetic field is proportional to the amount of current passed through the component. Okay. In this, what you are doing, you are just clamping the component between two electrical contacts. Then you are passing the current to the component. And when you pass the current to the component, there is a circular magnetic field established. Now, when the magnetizing current is stopped or it has reached a saturation level, you will see that when you are you stop the magnetizing, you have stopped the current, then a residual magnetic field is there within the component. Okay. Now, the strength of the induced magnetic field it is proportional to the amount of current passed through the component. Okay. Now we go with the second technique. Okay. Now, a second technique involves using clamps or prods which are attached or placed in contact with the component. Okay, a second technique involving using clamps or prods which are attached or placed in contact with the component. Okay, now what happens in this? Electrical current flows through the component from contact to contact. The current sets up a circular magnetic field around the path of the current. Around the path of the current. Okay. Now magnetization using indirect induction, that is indirect magnetization. Okay, now we're talking about indirect magnetization. Now indirect magnetization is accomplished by using a strong external magnetic field to establish a magnetic field within the component. What they are doing? Indirect magnetization is accomplished by using a strong external magnetic field to establish a magnetic field within a component. You are using something external magnetic field. Okay. Now, as with direct magnetization, there are several ways that indirect magnetization can be established. So, the use of permanent magnets is a low cost method for establishing a magnetic field. However, their use is limited due to lack of control of the field strength and the difficulty of placing and removing strong permanent magnets from the component. Okay, but they say that the use of permanent magnets is a low cost method. Okay, and you can establish a magnetic field because this. Okay, so next, so electromagnets in the form of adjustable horseshoe magnet called a yoke eliminate the problem associated with the permanent magnets and are used extensively in the industry. Okay, now if you, the problem of permanent magnets was there, so to eliminate, to you can say cancel the effects, the problems caused due to permanent magnets, we use electromagnets. So electromagnets are used in the form of adjustable horseshoe magnets, okay, called as a yoke, and this has helped to eliminate the problem associated with the permanent magnets and are used in the industry. So electromagnets only exhibit a magnetic flux when electric current is flowing around the soft iron core. Okay, electromagnets only exhibit a magnetic flux when electric current is flowing around the soft iron core. So when the magnet is placed on the component, a magnetic field is established between the north and the south pole of the magnet. You can see the north pole and the south pole on the right hand side, and you can see there is a magnetic flux in the legs of the yoke. Okay, the yoke that we are discussing, that is called maybe an electromagnet. And then you can see a current carrying wire in the green color. You can see in the green color current carrying wire and the magnetic flux in the legs of the yoke. Okay. Now, when you can see the magnetic flux in the legs of the yoke, so you can see that there is a track indication shown with the red color in the bottom side on the workpiece. Okay, you can see the red indication. Okay, so the magnetic flux is also there in the part, and due to this, the crack indication is there. So they say that electromagnets only exhibit a magnetic flux when electric current is flowing around the soft iron core. So when the magnet is placed on the component, now you are placing the magnet on the component, magnetic field is established between the north and the south pole of the magnet. Okay, when you have placed the magnet on the component, what happens? The north and south pole. Okay, they establish a magnetic field of the magnet. Now, what happens after that? Another way of indirectly inducing magnetic field in the material is by using a magnetic field of a current carrying conductor. Okay, a circular magnetic field can be established in cylindrical components by using a central conductor. Typically, one or more cylindrical components are hung from a solid copper bar running through an inside diameter. Now, the current is passed through the copper bar, and the resulting circular magnetic field establishes a magnetic field within the test one. Okay, well, you can say, excuse me, the use of electromagnets was quite simple. Okay, if you compare with the central conductor, the use of these electromagnets is very simple in finding out the crack indications. Okay, the use of coils and solenoids is a third method of indirect magnetization. Okay, the use of then coils and solenoid is a third method of indirect magnetization. So when the length of a component is several times larger than its diameter, a longitudinal magnetic field can be established in the component. Okay, the component is placed longitudinally in the concentrated fills the center of the coil or solenoid. Now, this magnetization technique is often referred to as coil short. So you can see the diagram. You can see there is a coil, okay, and the current is passing, and you can see the flaw that is being detected. Okay, how the field is established in this and how the flaw is being detected. This is called as coil and solenoid method. Okay, like a coil short. So they say that when the length of the component is several times larger than its diameter, okay, the length is very large, then a longitudinal magnetic field can be established in the component. Okay, this is how they do that. The component is placed longitudinally in the long component is placed in the concentrated magnetic field that fills the center of a coil or solenoid. Okay, so we call this technique as coil short. Okay, this is how we find out the flaws in this using coils and solenoids. Now, types of magnetizing current. So, electric current is often used to establish the magnetic field in components during the magnetic particle inspection. And alternating current and direct current are the two basic types of current commonly used. So the type of current used can have an effect on the inspection results. So the types of currents commonly used are briefly discussed. Okay. Now we all know that AC and DC, these two types of currents are available. Okay, we use normally this. and our purpose is to find out the flaws to our best possible way. That is, the inspection results should be the best. So to obtain the best results, or to obtain the best inspection results, we need to study about the current used. The first is the direct current. The direct current, it flows continuously in one direction at a constant voltage. Okay, a battery is the most common source of direct current. Okay, now you can easily understand that importance of current. So if you talk about DC, the DC say that it flows in continuously in one direction at a constant voltage, and a battery is the most common source of that current. So the current is set to flow from positive to the negative terminal through though electrons flow in the opposite direction. So direct current is very desirable when inspecting for subsurface defects. Now understand this, the direct current is desirable for subsurface defects. If you want to inspect subsurface defects, you use direct current because direct current generates a magnetic field that penetrates deeper into the material. Okay, see, DC direct current provides a constant voltage and the current flows in one direction. So maybe this generates a magnetic field that penetrates deeper into the material. Okay, so now in ferromagnetic materials, the magnetic field produced by direct current generally penetrates the entire cross section of the component. I repeat, in ferromagnetic materials, the magnetic field produced by the direct current generally penetrates the entire cross section of the component. Now we're talking about the second alternating current, AC. So the alternating current reverses its direction at the rate of 50 or 60 cycles per second. So alternating current is readily available in most facilities. It is convenient to make use of it for magnetic particle inspection. However, when alternating current is used to induce a magnetic field in ferromagnetic materials, the magnetic field will be limited to a thin layer at the surface of the component. Okay, the alternating current, okay, when it is used to induce a magnetic field in a ferromagnetic material, it is found that the magnetic field is limited to a thin layer at the surface of the component. So this phenomenon is known as the skin effect. This phenomenon is known as the skin effect. Only the skin is getting, you can say, judged. And it occurs because the changing magnetic field generates eddy currents in the test object. Okay, now the eddy currents produce a magnetic field that opposes the primary field. Okay, this eddy current, it produces a magnetic field that opposes the primary field, thus reducing the net magnetic flux below the surface. Okay, due to the oppose in the primary field, it reduces the magnetic flux below the surface. So therefore, it is recommended that AC be used only when the inspection is limited to surface defects. Okay, so we can say that the DC current can penetrate, the direct current can penetrate better inside the materials, and the alternating current is limited to only surface defects. Okay, now rectified alternating current. Now clearly the skin effects, though the skin effects limited the use of alternating current since many inspection applications are called for detection of subsurface defects. Okay. Now alternating current can be converted to current that is very much like the direct current through the process of rectification. You can rectify the alternating current. Okay. And now hence the name is rectified alternating current. So with the use of rectifiers, the reversing alternating current can be converted to one directional current. Okay. Now with the use of rectifiers, we are using rectifiers. The rectified alternating current can be converted to a one directional current. Though the three commonly used types of rectified current are described below. Like when you say that the half wave rectified alternating current, that is, you can say that HAWAC. Okay, the half wave rectified alternating current. So they say that when a single phase alternating current is passed through a rectifier, the current is allowed to flow only in one direction. So the reverse half of each cycle is blocked out. Okay, and so that an one directional pulsating current is produced. So the current rises from zero to a maximum and then returns to the zero. So no current flows during the time when the reverse cycle is blocked. To the HAVAC, the half-wave rectified alternating current repeats at the same rate as the unrectified current 50 to 60 Hz. So since half of the current is blocked out, the amperage is half of the unaltered AC. This type of current is often referred to as half-wave direct current or pulsating direct current. So the pulsation of the HAVAC, it helps in forming magnetic particle indications by vibrating the particles and giving them added mobility where that is especially important when using dry particles. Okay, so if you are using dry particles, you should be careful. So HAVAC is most commonly used to power electromagnetic yokes. Okay, so you can use this HAVAC in electromagnetic yokes. Okay, so you can see in the diagram also how it is done. Now full wave rectified alternating current, that is FAVAC, in a single phase. Now full wave rectification inverts the negative current to positive current rather than it blocking it out. Okay. Now this produces a pulsating direct current with no internal with no intervals, with no intervals between the pulses. This FAVAC this produces a pulsating direct current with no interval between the pulses. So filtering usually performed to soften the sharp polarity switching in the rectified current. Okay, you use filtering, okay, to soften the sharp polarity switching in the rectified current. So while particle mobility is not as good as the half wave alternating current due to reduction in pulsation, the depth of the subsurface magnetic field is removed. Now here in the FAVAC, that is full wave rectified alternating current, the depth of the subsurface magnetic field is improved. In HAVAC, it has applications in electromagnetic yoke, and now in FAVAC, the depth of the subsurface magnetic field is improved. So in this way, now that's how, okay, the three-phase full wave rectified alternating current. So the three-phase current is often used to power industrial equipment because it has more favorable power transmission and line loading characteristics. Now this is more, you can say, more of industrial uses. So they say that a three-phase current is often used to power industrial equipments because it has more favorable power transmission and the line loading characteristics. Okay, a three-phase current. And this type of electrical current is also highly desirable for magnetic particles testing because when it is rectified and filtered, the resulting current very closely resembles a direct current. Okay, and that is why it is often used to power industrial equipments. Okay, because it has become more favorable for power transmission and line loading characteristics. The stationary magnetic particle equipment wired with three-phase alternating currents will usually have the ability, okay, ability to magnetize with alternating current or direct current, that is three-phase full wave rectified, provided the inspector with the advantage of each current form. Okay, they say that the stationary magnetic particle equipment wired with three-phase alternating current will usually have the ability to magnetize with alternating current or direct current, that is the three-phase full wave rectified, providing the inspector with the advantage of each current form. Okay, now we go with the MCQs. Okay, because MCQ. The first MCQ is for that a longitudinal magnetic field has magnetic lines of force that run parallel to the long axis of the path. So longitudinal magnetization of component can be accomplished using the longitudinal field set up by a coil or a solenoid. So it can also be accomplished using a permanent magnet or electromagnet. So what do you say? Is it true or false? We studied about this magnetic field orientation and then we studied about longitudinal field magnetic field. So in this way, you can see that it is true. It is true in this case. Okay, the answer is A. Now, a component with high carbon content will have low permeability and will retain more magnetic flux than a material with low carbon content. So, what do you say? Is true or false? See, this we have studied in the permeability. Okay, that is the ease. So you can understand that with the component having high carbon content, obviously will have a low permeability. Okay, we have studied this with the Stratus loop also. So it is true. It is true in this case. So answer is A. False. Sorry, answer is A. True. In the true in this case, the answer is A. True. So in magnetic particle testing, the level of residual magnetism is important. The residual magnetic fields are affected by the permeability, okay, which can be related to the carbon content and alloying of the material. The previous question was related to permeability and the carbon content. Okay, and now is they say that the level of residual magnetism is important, and they say that the residual magnetic fields are affected by the permeability which can relate to the carbon content and alloying of the material. So it is true in this case also. Fourth, with magnetic particle inspection, it is the property of a material that describes the ease with which the magnetic flux can be established in the material. So what do you call this property? This is a permeability or coercive force or reluctance or retentivity. And what do you want? It is permeability. It is A, permeability. A circular magnetic field has a magnetic lines of force that run circumferentially around the perimeter of the part. So a circular magnetic field is induced in an article by either passing current to the component or by passing current through a conductor surrounded by the component. I repeat, understand this. A circular magnetic field has magnetic lines of force that run circumferentially around the perimeter of the part. A circular magnetic field is induced in an article by either passing current to the component or by passing current through a conductor surrounded by the component. So it is true in this case. So in magnetic particle inspection, being able to magnetize the part in two directions is important because the best detection of defects occurs when the lines of magnetic force are established at right angles to the longest dimension of the defect. Okay, so you can understand the best detection of defects. So you can say it is true in this case. Okay. So with the direct magnetization, the current is passed directly to the component. Okay, and the flow of current causes the circular magnetic field to form in and around the conductor. So it is true. It is true in this case for direct magnetization. Okay, for direct magnetization, it is true. In magnetic particle inspection, there are several ways that direct magnetization is commonly accomplished. So one of the ways is involving clamping the component between two electrical contacts in a special piece of equipment. So current is passed through the component and a circular magnetic field is established component. We studied this with a clear diagram previously in the slides also. It is true. True in this case. So in magnetic particle inspection, sorry. So magnetic particle inspection is the amount of reverse magnetic field which must be applied to a magnetic material to make the magnetic flux return to zero. It is coercive force. It is coercive force. Okay. The answer is B, coercive force. Now, indirect magnetization is accomplished by using a strong external magnetic field to establish a magnetic field within a component. I repeat, understand this statement. Indirect magnetization is accomplished by using a strong magnetic field to establish a magnetic field within the components. Okay, it is using a strong external magnetic field to establish a magnetic field within the component in case of indirect magnetization. So it is true in this case. So we have completed with the 10 MCQs right now, and these are the references which you can refer and increase your knowledge in the current topic. The topics that we studied today were more relevant in for detectivity and for finding out the defect. Okay. Moreover, the you can say the directions were also known to you, and yeah, see. The magnetic particle testing, if you understand the concepts of how the defect has been found, So you will find that this testing process is comparatively very easy. It's very easy to learn and to understand, to practice. So the inspector also understands this thing, and then they practice this mental particle testing, and it had its application in the industry. So you should refer these references and increase your knowledge in these topics, and more diagrams will also be visible to you in these books. Okay, these books are a good source of knowledge which will provide you, you can say, ample amount of knowledge for increasing your, you can say, um, increasing your knowledge in this particular topics. So thank you all for now.